The vision of 57 Muslim nations uniting under one banner to defend Gaza, symbolizing strength, solidarity, and shared destiny, is not merely a symbolic gesture, but a profound shift in the global balance of power that would redefine the meaning of unity among the Muslim world. For decades, Gaza has stood as a scarred reminder of division, neglect, and the failure of collective action. Yet at the same time, it has remained a rallying point that ignites the conscience of ordinary Muslims across continents. To imagine the flags of all 57 Muslim-majority countries raised together, forming a shield around Gaza, is to imagine an era in which identity, religion, and moral responsibility overpower political calculations and national interests. It speaks to the possibility of a transformation where the fragmentation of the Ummah gives way to a powerful collective front, and the people of Gaza cease to be isolated fighters struggling against overwhelming odds. Instead, finding themselves protected by a vast coalition of nations that share their pain as their own. Such a vision would not come without challenges. For the 57 countries that make up the Muslim world span from the Atlantic shores of Morocco to the far reaches of Indonesia, from oil-rich monarchies to struggling republics, from nations tightly aligned with Western powers to those that oppose them outright. To gather these diverse states under one cause requires more than rhetoric. It requires a binding force strong enough to overcome centuries of rivalry, mistrust, and competing priorities. Yet Gaza, with its images of devastation and resilience, has proven to be one of the rare issues capable of uniting Muslim hearts at the grassroots level. The outpouring of anger, grief, and solidarity from Jakarta to Islamabad, from Cairo to Rabat, from Istanbul to Dakar, has always suggested that Gaza holds the potential to transcend divisions. If governments were to act upon this shared sentiment, it would transform the region from a collection of fragmented voices into a thunderous chorus demanding justice. The strength of 57 flags aligned for one cause would not merely be military in nature, though the thought of such vast armies pooling their resources carries its own weight. It would be a multidimensional strength, political, economic, and moral. Politically, such a coalition could no longer be ignored in international forums. Their collective votes and representation in the United Nations, in trade blocs, in financial institutions, would give Gaza's defenders an unprecedented voice. Economically, the combined resources of these nations, from oil and gas reserves to technological hubs, could be mobilized to create a financial buffer for Gaza, to rebuild infrastructure, and to challenge the monopoly of Western aid structures that often come with conditions. Morally, the sight of 57 nations standing shoulder to shoulder would serve as a direct message to the world that Gaza is not alone. That any attack on Gaza is an attack on a collective identity that spans continents. That the days of Palestinians being dismissed as stateless or forgotten are over. The symbolism of flags, often underestimated, becomes central in this vision. Each flag carries within it the struggles, histories, and aspirations of its people. To see them united under the cause of Gaza would not only elevate the Palestinian struggle, but also reflect back on each nation, renewing a sense of purpose and shared dignity. For many Muslims who feel disillusioned by their leaders' silence or compromise, this alignment would reignite faith in the possibility of collective action. It would serve as a reminder that the Ummah is not simply a spiritual ideal, but a living, breathing force that can manifest itself in the defense of the oppressed. The very image of 57 flags lining the horizon around Gaza would become a rallying symbol for generations, a counter-narrative to the fragmentation and weakness often portrayed in global media. There is also the question of deterrence. A united coalition of this scale would alter the calculations of Israel and its backers. Where previously aggression could be justified under the cover of international indifference or muted responses, the presence of 57 nations committed to Gaza's defense would introduce an element of risk that even the strongest powers would hesitate to challenge. It would mean that any escalation would not remain confined to Gaza, but could trigger reactions across the Muslim world, affecting global trade routes, oil supplies, strategic alliances, and regional stability. In a world so interconnected, the cost of ignoring such unity would be immense. Thus, the vision is not only about direct military defense, but about creating an environment in which aggression itself becomes less tenable. However, the very possibility of this vision raises the dilemma of leadership. Who among the 57 nations would take the first step? Who would shoulder the responsibility of binding such a coalition? Who would ensure that the effort does not dissolve into symbolic summits and empty communiques? The competition for leadership between regional giants like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Iran, and Egypt has often paralyzed collective action. Yet Gaza, as a cause that transcends sectarian and political divides, offers a unique opportunity for cooperative leadership. A rotating or shared leadership model could emerge, where responsibility is distributed and no single nation monopolizes the cause. In this way, the collective effort would reflect not dominance, but genuine unity, a force where every flag, regardless of the size or power of the nation it represents, has equal worth. The diaspora also plays a crucial role in this vision. Muslims living in Europe, the Americas, and beyond often form a bridge between their homelands and the wider global community. Their voices, their activism, and their ability to influence politics in non-Muslim majority countries could amplify the message of unity. If they could point not only to protests and grassroots movements, but also to a formal alignment of 57 nations, their advocacy would carry far greater weight. The struggle of Gaza would cease to be portrayed as a regional conflict and would instead be understood as a global matter tied to justice, human rights, and international law. The historical significance of such unity cannot be ignored. The Muslim world has, for centuries, suffered under colonialism, division, and exploitation, often encouraged by external powers precisely to prevent such collective strength from emerging. To overturn this legacy, even for one cause, would mark a turning point in history. It would be remembered not only as the moment Gaza was defended, but as the moment the Muslim world rediscovered itself, shed its divisions, and reclaimed its agency. Future generations would look back at the sight of those 57 flags, not simply as an act of defense, but as the rebirth of a long-dormant unity that had the potential to reshape global politics. The emotional power of this vision is immense. For a mother in Gaza who fears for her children every time the sound of drones fills the air, the knowledge that she is not abandoned, but supported by the weight of entire nations, could bring a measure of hope. For the youth in Muslim capitals who often feel powerless, this unity would provide a cause worth believing in, a sign that their leaders are capable of acting with courage rather than compromise. For the wider world, it would be a reminder that oppression does not go unanswered, that solidarity still exists, and that even in an era of cynical politics, principles can prevail when the will is strong enough.